On March 14, 2023, at 10:52 in the morning, Tyler Brennan filmed something that violates every known law of physics. At 912 feet below the surface, 38 miles west of Point Conception, California, his helmet camera captured a translucent mass approximately 80 feet in length, passing directly through solid rock. Not around it, not over it, through it. Like the basalt wall didn't exist. Tyler Brennan, 39 years old, technical diving instructor, certified since 2008, with 15 years of flawless safety record, wasn't alone. His dive partner, Marcus Chen, filmed from a different angle. The NOAA research ROV they'd brought for the documentary captured it from above. 3 cameras, 3 perspectives. Same impossible event recorded in 4K resolution. When Tyler reached the surface 3 hours and 24 minutes later, after following every decompression protocol to the letter, Coast Guard vessels were already surrounding his boat. They'd arrived 16 minutes after he first saw the entity. He never made a distress call. Neither did anyone on his team. So how did they know? And what Tyler couldn't have known, what the confiscated footage would later reveal to classified Navy analysts, was that the translucent mass wasn't lost. It was navigating, moving with purpose toward something specific in Arguello Canyon, 12 miles southeast. 3 months later, it arrived, and the earthquake that followed registered 6.4 on the Richter scale. Tyler Brennan had been teaching people to dive safely in extreme conditions for over 15 years. He held certifications in technical diving, cave diving, wreck penetration, and trimix gas management. The kind of credentials that take years to earn and can be revoked with a single safety violation. He'd logged over 800 dives, trained rescue teams, and volunteered his time helping UC Santa Barbara marine researchers document underwater ecosystems that most people would never see. He was also a father. His daughter Emma, 7 years old, knew her dad had the coolest job in the world, even if she didn't fully understand why he spent so much time underwater. Tyler had been divorced for 3 years, shared custody, and on his weeks with Emma, he was the dad who showed up to every school event and cooked breakfast every morning. On his weeks without her, he dove. The ocean had always been his sanctuary, the place where problems dissolved into blue silence. He'd built his reputation on being cautious, methodical, the instructor who said no to risky dives when conditions weren't right. He'd never had an incident, never bent anyone, never lost anyone. People trusted Tyler Brennan because Tyler Brennan followed the rules. He also ran a small side business filming underwater documentaries for independent producers, nothing major. But it paid for Emma's Montessori tuition and kept his equipment upgraded. His specialty was geological formations, the strange and beautiful architecture that tectonic forces create on the seafloor. That's what brought him out to Point Conception that March morning. The project was straightforward. An independent documentary team wanted footage of rare basalt formations in the submarine canyon west of Point Conception. Tyler had assembled a small crew, just Marcus Chen as his dive partner, and Dr. Sarah Vance, a marine geologist from UC Santa Barbara, to provide scientific context. They had all the permits, filed their dive plan with the California Coastal Commission, checked the NOTMARS that morning. The area was clear. No military activity, no restrictions. Conditions were perfect. Visibility at 80 feet, weak current, water temperature steady at 43 degrees Fahrenheit. They were using state-of-the-art equipment, 3 4K cameras, high-resolution sonar, and a small ROV for support shots. The plan was textbook. Descend to 912 feet using trimix breathing gas, 47 minutes of bottom time to film the basalt walls, then a 3-hour, 20-minute ascent with mandatory decompression stops. Tyler had run the calculations twice. He'd done deeper dives before. This one should have been routine. They entered the water at 10:14 in the morning, descended along the canyon wall, following the ancient volcanic rock formations down into the blue-black depths where sunlight becomes a memory, and your dive computer is the only thing telling you which way is up. At 912 feet, Tyler's primary light cut through the darkness, illuminating a vertical wall of basalt that had been forming for millions of years. The rock face stretched beyond the reach of his beam, disappearing into black water above and below. Marcus positioned himself 20 feet to Tyler's right, his camera capturing wide-angle shots, while Tyler focused on close-up details of the columnar formations. Dr. Sarah Vance monitored everything from the support boat on the surface, watching the live feeds from both divers and the ROV hovering 50 feet above them. The sonar had been running continuously since they reached depth, mapping the canyon walls in 3 dimensions. At 10:41 in the morning, the sonar detected something. Not a rock formation, not a fish. The reading showed a large mass moving toward them from the northwest, but the density signature was reading 0. Sarah's voice crackled through their underwater communication system. "Tyler, Marcus, I'm seeing something on sonar, but it's not making sense. No density reading." "You guys see anything?" Tyler checked his surroundings, saw nothing but rock and water and the dim glow of Marcus's lights in the distance. Then the water changed. Not the temperature, not the current, something else. A shift in the quality of darkness itself. The entity emerged from beyond his light range slowly, deliberately, like it had been there all along and was only now choosing to be visible. Tyler's first thought was jellyfish, some massive undocumented species drifting with currents that didn't exist at this depth. But it wasn't drifting. It was moving with purpose, a translucent mass approximately 80 feet long and 20 feet in diameter, with no defined edges, no bioluminescence, completely transparent except for a faint distortion of the water behind it, like looking through warped glass. Tyler activated his primary camera, started recording, and keyed his comm. "Sarah, I have visual on your contact. It's biological, I think. Massive. Never seen anything like it." Marcus's voice cut in. "I see it too. Tyler, what the hell is that?" The entity continued its slow approach to the basalt wall, seemingly unaware of or uninterested in the 2 divers watching it. Tyler estimated its speed at less than 1 knot, steady and unwavering. When it reached the rock face, it didn't stop. It didn't change direction. It passed through the wall like the basalt was made of water. Tyler watched the front edge of the translucent mass touch the rock, then disappear into it, followed by the middle section, then the tail end. 14 seconds from contact to complete penetration. The rock remained solid, unchanged, no opening or fissure where the entity had entered. Tyler kicked toward the wall, Marcus following close behind. He reached out with his gloved hand and touched the basalt where the entity had disappeared. Solid, cold, unchanged. He pulled a small hammer from his equipment belt and tapped the rock. The sound transmitted dully through his comm system, the expected response of dense volcanic stone. He collected a small sample, placing it in a collection bag. Marcus had his camera pressed close to the wall, filming the exact spot where they'd watched something 80 feet long vanish into solid rock. Sarah's voice came through, steady but tight with controlled excitement. "I watched the whole thing on the ROV feed. I saw it. Both of you are telling me you just watched something pass through solid basalt?" Tyler replied, Not around it, not over it, through it. We need to stay and document this. Marcus added, "This is violating every physical law I can think of. Rock doesn't just become permeable. They should have ascended immediately." That was the protocol for encountering unknown anomalies. But this wasn't a protocol situation. This was something that shouldn't exist, and they had 3 cameras recording it. Tyler made the decision. We stay. We document. We maintain safe bottom time, and we follow decompression to the letter, but we don't leave until we understand what we're seeing. 8 minutes later, the entity returned. This time, it approached from a different angle, moving toward a massive boulder on the canyon floor, approximately 40 feet in diameter, half buried in sediment. Tyler repositioned himself to capture both the entry point and where he estimated the exit would be on the opposite side. Marcus moved to a third angle, creating triangulated coverage. The ROV descended to their depth, adding a fourth perspective. The entity reached the boulder and began its passage. Tyler counted silently. 1, 2, 3. The translucent mass entered the rock on the north side. 4, 5, 6. No disturbance of the sediment around the boulder base. 7, 8, 9. Tyler kicked to the south side, camera ready. 10, 11, 12. The entity began emerging from solid rock, the same warped glass distortion appearing first, followed by the main mass. 13, 14. Complete. Marcus had his laser measurement tool out, scanning the boulder. Still 40 feet diameter. No change in dimensions. No fractures, no heat signature variation. The entity continued past them, still moving southeast, and Tyler noticed something he'd missed before. Every time it had appeared, every passage it had made, the direction was consistent. Always southeast. Always the same bearing. Tyler checked his dive computer. They had 6 minutes before mandatory ascent. He keyed his comm. "Sarah, plot the trajectory. Where is this thing heading?" There was a pause, then Sarah's voice returned. "If it maintains this bearing, it's heading straight for Arguello Canyon, about 12 miles from your current position." Marcus asked, "What's in Arguello Canyon?" Sarah's response carried a new tone, something between curiosity and concern. "Deeper water. Fissures going down past 2,000 feet. And according to historical records, there used to be a naval ordnance test station installation there, operational from the 1950s through 1972. Records say it was decommissioned, but the details are pretty sparse." Tyler watched the entity fade into the distance, still moving with that same impossible purpose. He made a note of the exact time, 10:47 in the morning. "We need to surface. Time's up." They began their ascent, following the anchor line, making their first decompression stop at 80 feet. That's when they heard the boat engines above. Sarah's voice came through, no longer calm. "Tyler, we have company." Coast Guard just arrived. Fast response boat came in from the northwest at high speed. Tyler checked his watch. 11:03 in the morning. 16 minutes since they'd first detected the entity. The Coast Guard station at Point Arguello was 38 miles away. Standard response time would be 90 minutes minimum. Marcus said what Tyler was thinking. "How did they know to come here?" Sarah replied, "They're hailing us. The officer says they're responding to a distress call." Tyler felt cold water seep through a seal that wasn't leaking. "Sarah, we never made a distress call." A pause, then Sarah's voice, quiet. "I know. I've been monitoring our comms. Nothing went out from this boat." The officer's voice came through on the open channel, formal and clipped. "This is Captain Reynolds, United States Coast Guard. You are diving in restricted waters. Surface immediately. Tyler responded, Captain, we filed our dive plan. We checked not Mars this morning. This area was clear. Reynolds replied, Situation changed at 10:30 this morning. This is now a restricted military research area. Surface immediately and prepare for equipment inspection. Tyler did the math. 10:30 in the morning. 22 minutes before they'd detected the entity. While they were still underwater, descending, before they'd seen anything or transmitted anything, someone had already classified this area as restricted. Marcus's voice came through the private channel, just between the two of them. Tyler, they were waiting for us to see it. Tyler and Marcus completed their decompression stops exactly as planned, neither of them speaking much during the long ascent. Every 20 feet, they paused, waited for their bodies to adjust, watched their dive computers count down the minutes. At 80 feet, they could see the hull of their boat above, dark against the lighter surface water, and surrounding it, 3 larger vessels. The Coast Guard fast response boat had been joined by a second ship, larger, with equipment that looked scientific rather than military. Through the private channel, Marcus said, That's a NOAA research vessel. Tyler, the NOAA base in Monterey, is 180 miles from here. There's no way they made it in 16 minutes. Tyler watched the seconds tick by on his computer, forced himself to breathe slowly and steadily, and said nothing. At 2:11 in the afternoon, 3 hours and 24 minutes after they'd entered the water, exactly as the dive tables required, they surfaced. The deck of their boat was crowded. 6 Coast Guard officers in uniform, 4 people in civilian clothes with no AA identification badges, and Dr. Sarah Vance, standing near the equipment lockers, with her arms crossed and her face set in an expression Tyler recognized as professionally furious. Captain Reynolds stepped forward as Tyler and Marcus climbed aboard, seawater streaming from their dry suits. He was maybe 45, graying at the temples, with the kind of weathered face that came from decades of ocean work. His tone was polite, but absolute. Gentlemen, I need you to remove your cameras and hand over all recording devices, data storage, and GPS logs immediately. This is a matter of national security. Sarah spoke before Tyler could respond. Captain, we have all the proper permits for this dive. California Coastal Commission approved our research proposal. We're documenting geological formations for an educational documentary. There's nothing classified about basalt columns. TD. One of the NOAA personnel stepped forward, a woman in her early 50s with short gray hair and an expression that suggested she'd seen this conversation play out before. She didn't introduce herself. She simply looked at Tyler and asked, What exactly did you see at 912 feet? Tyler pulled off his dive hood, ran a hand through his wet hair, and described it. The translucent mass, approximately 80 feet long, passing through solid rock twice, moving with clear purpose toward the southeast. The woman took notes in a small waterproof notebook, writing quickly, her face showing no surprise, no skepticism, no emotion at all. Like she'd been expecting exactly this answer. Marcus removed his camera housing and held it for a moment before handing it over. How did you know we were here? We never transmitted a distress call. We never radioed about what we saw. So how did you know to come? Reynolds didn't answer. One of his officers was already collecting their cameras, the hard drives from the boat's computer system, Sarah's research notes, even the small rock sample Tyler had collected from the basalt wall. Another officer was downloading data from their GPS units. The NOAA woman closed her notebook and spoke in the flat tone of someone delivering a rehearsed explanation. You entered an active military research area. The classification status changed this morning at 10:30. You should have monitored updates to the Not Mars. Tyler felt his jaw tighten. We checked Not Mars at 9:15 this morning, right before we started our pre-dive briefing. The area was clear. You're telling me it changed 45 minutes later, while we were underwater, before we saw anything? The woman met his eyes. Correct. E-choots. Sarah pulled out her phone, scrolled through her saved documents. I have the Not Mars screenshot from this morning. Time-stamped at 9:17. Area clear within 10 nautical miles of these coordinates. No restrictions. Reynolds took the phone gently but firmly from her hands, examined the screen, and passed it to one of his officers. You'll get your phone back, but the screenshot and any related data will be removed. Marcus laughed, a short, bitter sound. Removed. Right. Like it never existed. The No-AA woman's expression didn't change. You are ordered to leave this area immediately. Do not return. Do not discuss what you saw with anyone outside your immediate team. This incident is now classified under maritime research protocols. Tyler stripped off his dry suit down to the thermal layer underneath, his movements careful and deliberate. He was trying to memorize every face on that deck, every name tag, every detail he could retain, because all their recordings were gone, and memory was all they'd have left. What about the entity? What is it? Is it biological? Is it dangerous? The woman turned to leave, then paused, seemed to consider whether to answer. When she spoke, her voice was quieter, almost human. It's not dangerous. Not to you. It's been here much longer than any of us, and it's being monitored. Reynolds added, Your boat will be escorted out of the area. Maintain course for Santa Barbara Harbor. Failure to comply will result in your vessel being impounded and formal charges filed. Then they were gone, back to their ships, taking with them every piece of evidence that the dive had ever happened, except for what Tyler, Marcus, and Sarah carried in their heads. The trip back to Santa Barbara took 4 hours. None of them spoke much. Sarah sat at the chart table, staring at her blank phone where the screenshots had been. Marcus stood at the stern, watching the Coast Guard boat follow them at a distance of half a mile, making sure they left. Tyler piloted the boat, his hands steady on the wheel, his mind working through everything that had happened. At 10:47 in the morning, they'd watched something impossible. By 2:11 in the afternoon, it had been erased. Almost. When they docked at Santa Barbara, just after 6 in the evening, Tyler helped Marcus secure the boat, said goodbye to Sarah, and drove home to his empty apartment. It was his week without Emma. The silence in his apartment felt heavier than the water at 912 feet. He sat at his kitchen table, pulled out a notebook, and started writing down everything he could remember. Every detail, every timestamp, every measurement. The woman from No-AA had said the entity wasn't dangerous. She'd also said it was being monitored, which meant someone knew it existed. Someone had been watching it, and they'd known Tyler and his team would see it. The question was why they'd been allowed to get that close in the first place. 3 days later, Tyler went to the library at UC Santa Barbara. Sarah had recommended it, said their digital archives had declassified military documents that weren't widely available online. He spent 6 hours in a quiet corner of the research section, going through records of naval installations along the California coast. Most of it was routine, decommission dates, and budget allocations, nothing remarkable. Then he found the file for the Naval Ordnance Test Station at Point Arguello, operational from 1958 through 1972. Budget of $47 million, which adjusted for inflation would be over $400 million in today's currency. for a small coastal research station. The official purpose listed was monitoring geological phenomena of interest to national defense. Tyler read that line 3 times. Not weapons testing, not submarine detection. Monitoring geological phenomena. The installation had 17 long-range hydrophones, advanced seismographs, and, according to one document, specialized observation equipment for deep-water anomaly tracking. The project had a name: Barrier Watch. It was terminated officially in September 1972. Tyler found a newspaper article from the Santa Barbara Press, dated September 23, 1972. Small article, bottom of page 6. Minor earthquake in Arguello Canyon, magnitude 4.2. The article mentioned that Navy personnel had evacuated the underwater installation during the tremor. Standard safety procedure. Nothing unusual. Except Tyler pulled up geological records from the UC Santa Barbara Marine Science Institute. Between January 1971 and September 1972, there had been 43 small earthquakes in the Arguello Canyon region. Not unusual for California. But when Tyler mapped them, he saw something that made his hands stop turning pages. The earthquakes formed a pattern, a straight line, 12 miles long, running from exactly where Tyler had been diving to the deepest part of Arguello Canyon. Tyler printed the maps, highlighted the pattern, and sent encrypted copies to Marcus and Sarah. Then he kept digging. He found more documents about Barrier Watch, budget amendments, personnel transfers, supply requisitions for equipment he didn't recognize. But the trail went cold after September 1972. Officially, the project ended. The installation was decommissioned. The Navy moved on to other concerns, except Tyler noticed something in the later documents: references to a successor program, code name redacted, budget line buried in general operations. The money hadn't stopped. It had just been reclassified. He spent 2 more days searching, finding nothing concrete, just hints and gaps where information should be. Then, on April 28th, 6 weeks after the dive, Tyler came home from teaching a basic open water class to find a package waiting at his door. Manila envelope, no return address, postmarked from San Diego. His name and address written in careful block letters. No other markings. He brought it inside, turned it over in his hands, considered not opening it. Considered that maybe some things were better left unknown. Then he thought about the entity passing through solid rock, and the No AA woman saying, "It's been here much longer than any of us," and he opened the envelope. Inside was a USB drive and a handwritten note on plain white paper. The note said, "You deserve to know what you saw. Beth." Tyler didn't know anyone named Beth. He plugged the drive into his laptop, half expecting it to be empty or corrupted or some kind of virus. Instead, it contained 73 documents. NOAA internal reports spanning from 1973 to 2022. Classified memos, research summaries, observation logs, and every single one of them was stamped with a header that made Tyler's mouth go dry. Project Lithosphere Intrusion Monitoring. The first document was a transition memo dated October 1972, 1 month after Barrier Watch officially ended. It explained that the observation mission would continue under NOAA jurisdiction instead of Navy command, with a broader research mandate and deeper classification. The objective was stated clearly in bureaucratic language that somehow made it more disturbing. Continued monitoring and study of phase-shifted biological anomalies capable of penetrating solid matter, with focus on behavioral patterns, migration triggers, and correlation to seismic events. Tyler read that sentence 3 times. Phase-shifted biological anomalies. That was what they called it. Not creature, not entity, not unknown phenomenon. They had a scientific term for it, which meant they'd been studying it long enough to develop terminology. He opened a file dated June 1998, authored by someone named Dr. Helena Marsh, NOAA Physics Division. The report was dense with equations and quantum mechanics terminology that Tyler only partially understood, but the summary section was written for non-physicists. Dr. Marsh proposed that the entities existed in a state of macroscopic quantum superposition, similar to how subatomic particles could occupy multiple states simultaneously, but scaled up to a biological organism 80 feet long. In this state, the entities didn't interact with normal baryonic matter, the atoms and molecules that made up rocks and water and human bodies. To them, a basalt wall and empty ocean were functionally identical, both just quantum fields with different probability distributions. The report used an analogy Tyler could grasp. Neutrinos, subatomic particles produced by nuclear reactions, passed through the entire Earth without ever touching an atom, traveling through thousands of miles of rock as if it were empty space. The entities operated on a similar principle, but they were alive, or something close to alive, and they were aware enough to navigate. Dr. Marsh's report noted that the entities responded to magnetic fields and seismic activity. They were drawn to areas of tectonic stress, deep fissures in the ocean floor, hydrothermal vents. The working hypothesis was that they originated from deeper layers of Earth's crust, possibly the upper mantle, and migrated upward during periods of geological activity. Tyler kept reading. A document from 2011 listed 23 confirmed sightings between 1958 and 2010, all along the west coast of the United States. All at depths exceeding 800 feet, all moving toward areas that experienced significant seismic events within 60 to 90 days of the sighting. The correlation was 94%. Tyler pulled up a calculator and did the math. March 14, 2023, when he saw the entity. 90 days forward was June 12th. He opened another file, this one dated March 21st, 2023, 1 week after his dive. It was an internal NOAA assessment marked urgent. The summary stated, based on observation of Type 3 entity at point conception on March 14 at coordinates 34.38 north, 120.74 west, moving southeast toward Arguello Canyon at estimated velocity of 0.4 knots. Significant seismic event projected between June 10th and July 15th, 2023. Epicenter estimated at Arguello Canyon, depth 8 to 12 miles, magnitude 6.2 to 6.8. Recommend continued monitoring and civilian access restriction within 10 nautical miles of projected track. They knew. They'd known within a week of Tyler's dive that an earthquake was coming. They could predict it, not from seismic sensors or ground deformation or any traditional monitoring. They could predict it because something that lived in the Earth's crust was moving toward the fault line. And they'd been tracking these things for over 60 years. The last file on the drive was a video, 2 minutes and 43 seconds long. Tyler clicked play. The woman who appeared on screen was in her early 50s, short gray hair, sitting in what looked like an office with NOAA maritime charts on the wall behind her. She looked directly at the camera, and Tyler recognized her immediately. The woman who'd taken notes on the deck of his boat. The woman who'd asked what he'd seen and written down his answer without surprise. She spoke quietly, like she was afraid someone might overhear. My name is Beth Kowalski. I'm an ROV operations supervisor for NOAA Pacific Region. I was operating the remote vehicle during your dive on March 14th. I saw everything you saw. I've been working on this project for 17 years. I've watched 8 of these entities, maybe 9, if you count the one in 2019 that we weren't sure about. The public deserves to know these things exist. They deserve to know that we can predict major earthquakes months in advance. But we don't, because the existence of the entities is classified as secret stroke no foreign. No foreign nationals. Can't share the data with Japan. Can't share it with Chile. Can't warn anyone. I'm retiring next month. They can't silence me anymore. She paused, glanced at something off camera, then looked back. The entity you saw was last tracked on June 8, 2023, at coordinates 34.42 north, 120.87 west. Arguello Canyon. Depth of 2,087 feet. That's where it stopped moving. That's where it went down. If the pattern holds, you have maybe a week. The video ended. Tyler sat in the blue light of his laptop screen for a long time, not moving. Then he pulled up the USGS earthquake monitoring website and searched for recent activity in the Arguello Canyon region. The results loaded slowly. Between June 12 and June 18, 2023, there had been 6 earthquakes, magnitudes ranging from 3.1 to 4.7. All of them with epicenters in Arguello Canyon. All of them at approximately the same depth. 2,100 feet. Exactly where Beth Kowalski said the entity had stopped. Tyler checked the USGS data every day for the next 2 weeks, watching the small tremors continue in Arguello Canyon. Magnitudes ranging from 2.8 to 4.1, nothing catastrophic, but persistent, like something settling into place deep underground. Then, on June 18, 2023, at 3:42 in the morning, his phone woke him with an emergency alert. Earthquake. Magnitude 6.4. Epicenter in the ocean, 38 miles west of Lompoc. He lay in the dark of his bedroom, feeling the building sway gently even this far from the epicenter, and he knew exactly what had happened. The entity had reached its destination. 96 days after he'd watched it pass through solid rock, the earthquake hit exactly where the NOAA documents had predicted it would. The news reports called it a significant but not catastrophic event. Moderate damage in Lompoc and Santa Maria, cracked roads, broken windows, a few building facades that needed repair. No fatalities. $24 million in property damage. The USGS issued their standard analysis, tectonic stress release along a known fault line. Normal geological processes, nothing unexpected for a seismically active region like coastal California. No mention of prediction. No mention of warning. No mention of a translucent mass that had been navigating through the Earth's crust for 3 months, marking the path like a fuse burning toward detonation. Tyler sent a text to Marcus and Sarah. Just 3 words. It happened. Exactly. Neither of them replied for several hours. When they did, Sarah said, "I know." Marcus said, "We saw it coming." Tyler kept teaching diving, but he stopped taking contracts for deep technical work. He stayed in the recreational range, 40 to 60 feet, where the water was still blue-green and sunlight penetrated, and nothing impossible lived. His daughter Emma noticed he wasn't bringing home stories about the deep anymore, asked him why he didn't go to the really dark water like he used to. He told her he was getting older, wanted to stay where it was safer, which was true, but not the whole truth. The whole truth was that he couldn't unsee what he'd seen, couldn't unknow what he knew, and every time he descended past 100 feet, he found himself watching the water for signs of something that shouldn't exist. Marcus took it harder. 2 months after the earthquake, he quit commercial diving entirely. took a job at the Monterey Bay Aquarium giving educational tours, where the deepest water he encountered was 12 feet, and everything inside it was catalogued and understood. When Tyler called him in August, Marcus said he was sleeping better, not having the dreams anymore. The dreams where he was at 912 feet, and the rock walls started moving. Dr. Sarah Vance left UC Santa Barbara in September, accepted a position at the University of Colorado in Boulder. No coast, no ocean, geology that was safely exposed to air and sunlight. Tyler visited her before she left, helped her pack up her office. She told him she loved her work, loved the ocean, but she couldn't study underwater formations anymore without wondering what might be passing through them just outside human perception. Tyler tried to contact Beth Kowalski. He sent an email to the address he found in an old NOAA directory, got an automated response that the address didn't exist. He searched LinkedIn, found her profile deleted. He called the NOAA Pacific Region office, asked to speak with Beth Kowalski from ROV Operations. The receptionist put him on hold, came back 3 minutes later, said there was no record of anyone by that name ever working there. Tyler had the video. He had her voice, her face, her confession recorded in digital format. But officially, she didn't exist. Then, in late September, he found a small article buried in the San Diego Union Tribune. Former NOAA employee dies in accident. Beth Kowalski, 52 years old, single vehicle collision on Highway 101 north of Oceanside. Her car had left the road on a clear night with no weather complications, no evidence of mechanical failure, no witnesses. The article said authorities were treating it as a tragic accident, possibly caused by driver fatigue. Tyler made 3 copies of the USB drive and stored them in 3 different locations. One in a safe deposit box, one with Marcus, one buried in waterproof container in his garage under 2 feet of marked concrete. He didn't know if he was being paranoid or prudent, but Beth Kowalski had given him the truth and then died in a convenient accident, and he wasn't going to let that truth disappear. In October, someone posted on a technical diving forum Tyler monitored, DiveTech Pro, username anonymous. Has anyone else seen transparent mass moving through rocks? Within 6 hours, 4 other divers had responded. All of them West Coast. All of them between 2018 and 2023. All of them described the same thing, translucent forms between 50 and 80 feet long, passing through solid geological structures like they weren't there. All of them at depths between 800 and 1,000 feet. Tyler was composing a response, considering whether to share his experience, when the entire thread disappeared, not deleted with a moderator note, just gone, like it had never existed. But Tyler had taken screenshots. He always took screenshots now. In November, a WikiLeaks-style document dump appeared on a site Tyler had never heard of. Thousands of pages of classified Navy and NOAA files related to something called Project Lithosphere Intrusion Monitoring. The site was taken down within 18 hours, but not before Tyler downloaded everything. The documents confirmed everything Beth had leaked and more. 47 confirmed sightings since 1958. 94% correlation between entity sightings and subsequent earthquakes. Observation protocols, response procedures, civilian encounter management strategies. It was all there. Decades of institutional knowledge about something that wasn't supposed to exist. As of January 2024, the area around Point Arguello remained classified as environmentally sensitive. Diving was prohibited below 200 feet within 10 nautical miles of the coordinates where Tyler had made his discovery. The official reason was protection of a rare cold water ecosystem. NOAA maintained 3 permanent sensor installations in the area, visible on satellite imagery if you knew where to look. But the data they collected was classified. Tyler checked the USGS earthquake monitor every morning with his coffee. Marcus sent him encrypted messages every few weeks, usually just checking in, making sure Tyler was okay. Sarah called once a month from Colorado, where she was studying ancient lake beds and sedimentary formations that had been dry for 10,000 years. None of them dove deep anymore. None of them talked about what they'd seen with anyone outside their small circle of 3. And posts about transparent entities passing through rock kept appearing on diving forums, staying up for a few hours, then vanishing like they'd never been written. Then, on December 4th, 2024, 8 days ago, Tyler received an email from an address he didn't recognize. No message in the body. Just a subject line that said, Oregon Coast, 918 feet, December 4th. Attached was a single frame of video, clearly taken from a dive camera. The image showed a translucent form, approximately 70 feet long, passing through a rocky outcrop. The metadata was still embedded. December 4th, 2024. 10:37 in the morning. Location coordinates: 43.18 north, 124.92 west. 42 miles west of Coos Bay, Oregon. Tyler checked the USGS seismic predictions for the Oregon coast. No significant earthquake activity forecasted for the next 90 days. The region was geologically stable, but 96 days after he'd seen an entity in California, an earthquake had struck exactly where it had been heading. If the pattern held, if these things really were precursors to seismic events, then Oregon should be expecting something major around early March 2025. But the USGS, with all their sensors and historical data and ground deformation measurements, saw nothing coming. Which meant either the pattern was breaking, or something had changed, or these entities were doing something different than they had for the past 60 years. Tyler stared at the image on his screen, this impossible creature that existed in a state of quantum superposition, that could pass through mountains like they were made of air, that had been living in Earth's crust since long before humans ever looked at the ocean and wondered what lived below. And he thought about all those earthquakes over the decades, the ones that came 90 days after sightings, the perfect correlation, the way these things moved toward fault lines like they were coming home. What if they weren't predicting earthquakes? What if they were causing them?